Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock. It's Tuesday. It's time for 10 with Tim. We are going verse by verse through the book of Genesis, and today we're in Genesis chapter 24. We're going to do just the first part. I believe that Genesis chapter 24 is literally the longest chapter in the book of Genesis, and it is the story of the bride of Isaac, finding a wife for Isaac. In our passage today, we're going to do the first 27 verses today. In our passage today, these are, just so you know, these opening speeches from Abraham. These will be his last words in the book of Genesis. Now, we're going to hear about him a little bit more, but these are his last spoken words, and I love the way his last spoken words continue to reiterate the promise, God's promise to him, how he has left his land, left his family, following this promise that God was going to give him the land and then give him descendants. Now, of course, up to this point, the tension has been in the fact that, God had promised him, this incredible, that he would be the father of a nation, many nations, but he never had any, no children. There was no son. Well, now he's got a son, but now there's no mother. Sarah's gone, so there aren't going to be any more kids in this line unless now Isaac gets a wife. And so now, in order for the promise to continue, Isaac needs a wife. And so that's where we pick up. Abraham calls in his elder servant, his most trusted, most qualified, and the servant with the most status. And he calls him in for this very, very special mission to go back to the place of Abraham's family, to go back and find a wife for Isaac. It's really interesting. Now, Abraham, it's very important, don't let him, it almost sounds like a deathbed, but it's not really his deathbed. But Abraham is saying, don't let Isaac marry a Canaanite woman. Now, as if I have to say this, that's not racism. Abraham's not saying, don't let him, date any of the women, go back and get our kind of people. No. It's not in any way a racist statement. It's religious. Abraham doesn't want, at this point, in the fulfillment of the promise, you can't have a religious apostasy. You can't have Isaac marry a woman of a strange God and therefore bring, strange gods into this family that God has promised to bless. And so it's not a racist issue, it's a religious issue. And that's true all through Scripture. God never forbids marrying outside your ethnic race. It's not that you have to find a wife with the same skin color, you have to find a wife with the same faith. And so this is why Abraham is so insistent. Now, there's this real strange little oath. The New Living Translation says, take an oath by putting your hand under my thigh. Okay, yes, that's weird. I'll try to put this kindly. This is an ancient kind of oath and a very serious oath between men. The idea is that the one who's making the oath is placing his hand near the other man's loins, his genitals, literally. The seriousness of this oath is sort of implied in that placing of the hand close to the place of the man's procreative strength. The idea is kind of swearing by your progeny. You know what I'm saying? And so you'll see this a couple of places in the Old Testament. Again, it's quite strange and very strange to us, but a very solemn oath between Abraham and his servant. Now, as I said, Abraham says, you got to go back to my family, to the place of my family. Now, if you remember from what we read, what was it? Genesis chapter 11, I believe, when we first read about the descendants of Terah. Was it Terah, Abraham's father? Terah had three sons, Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm so blank today. Nahor and Haran were Abraham's brothers. Haran was Lot's father, and he died. We're told that in Genesis chapter 11. That's why Lot is kind of out there and needs a guardian. Haran also had two daughters, one of which is named Milcah. And so Nahor is the other brother. Nahor ends up marrying, is that his niece Milcah. So Nahor and Milcah, they get married, and then they have children. They have a son named Bethuel, and then Bethuel has a daughter named Rebekah. So understand, Rebekah, whom we're about to meet, she's the granddaughter of Abraham's brother Nahor. Did I say any of that right? It's also confusing in my head, but I'm trying to help you. I shouldn't help you because I'm going to confuse you. But understand, the only living brother that Abraham has is Nahor, right? Nahor. And Nahor has children. Now, at the end of that story, at the end of the story of the sacrifice of Isaac, that we just read, you got that really strange at chapter 22. Soon after this, like after that sacrifice of Isaac, Abraham hears that Milcah, his brother Nahor's wife, had borne Nahor 8 sons. And so Abraham is aware of the fact that Nahor's family is growing. And so he knows, therefore, that there is likely a suitable bride for his son Isaac there in the family of Nahor. So he sends his servant back, to where his only living brother is, to try to find a wife among his people. And that's how it goes. Now, part of the condition is under no circumstances should Isaac go there. Again, the promise is for the land, of course, and then, the descendants. But Isaac has to stay there in the land. If she don't want to move, then Abraham says, then you're released from the oath. You can come on back without her. If you can't find a suitable woman that's going to come here. But Abraham is confident. He says, but I know that the angel of the Lord will go before you, and you're going to find a girl. And of course he does. Now it's really a neat story. It's really dramatic and sort of long and drawn out. The servant leaves with 10 camels, which is extraordinary caravan. It is, of course, a display of wealth. I mean, you can take all the camels you want, but the one thing that's weird here is that you're going to ask this girl if she wants to marry this guy, and she's never going to see him. So you're going to have to put on some kind of show. And so the servant brings all these camels and all of this wealth. It's a way of showing the wealth, the prestige, and the importance of Abraham. And of course, therefore, I suppose the desirability of his son Isaac. So that's why this incredible caravan. So he prays and he says, okay, Lord, I'm just going to sit right here. And I'm going to sit here by the well where the young girls will come, and I'm going to ask them for a drink, and whichever one gives me a drink and then waters all my camels, let her be the one. Now, I've prayed prayers like this. You probably have too. Give me a sign, Lord. Just make it obvious to me, Lord. There could be any number of girls at this well, but let her be the one that gives me a drink and then offers to water my camels. And so sure enough, that's exactly what happens. Now, this is an amazing scene. Rebecca's beautiful. She's of marrying age, but she's never, ever, never married, never been with a man. And so she meets the servant and he says, hey, girl, would you give me a drink? And she notice there's this, she runs up, she runs down. She's busy, it's a deal to get down to the well or up to the well and then back to him. It's up and down. And you got to understand that because she first she gives him a drink. She doesn't, according to the language here, she doesn't just give him the jug. She literally, holds a jug. She's very, very kind and gracious in giving him a drink. And then she says, let me water your camels too. Now, there are 10 camels. Now, according to, the Animal Planet, whatever, if you know anything about camels, when camels drink, like a typical camel like this that's been on a long journey could drink gallons. A single camel could drink gallons of water, and there are 10 of them. And so the picture is, this is like Hercules. Rebecca, this girl is something else. She's up and down, up and down. She got one jug, up and down, and she waters all those camels, and the servant watches her silently. Okay, I got thoughts about that, man, dang, making this girl do all the work. But understand, he's silent because he doesn't want to influence the outcome. You know, he just wants to watch her to see if she's going to do what he's asked the Lord, because I guess if she quits, halfway through, then she's not the one. He wants to see her finish that task, and she finishes that task. And then, in a beautiful sign of chivalry here, he hangs a gold ring in her nose, which is a wonderful thing in their culture, and of course begins to give her these golden gifts. He finds out that she is Nahor's granddaughter, Bethuel's daughter, and so the plan is made to go back and meet the family. We're going to stop right there. This is the easiest, most successful mission ever. If you've ever been single and looked for a spouse, or if you just ever needed God to show up and do something for you, there's something about this passage. It's just like, oh man, it's easy. He has an easy trip of it. He gets there, he sits down at the first well he sits down at, and the first girl that comes up, she's the one, and she's obviously the one, and he just thanks God, and it's a God thing, and can I just say my life isn't always that way? At the end of this, verse 27, he says, the Lord has led me straight. Man, sometimes the Lord leads me straight, but then lots of times he leads me crooked. Can I just say, it's not always this way. And I just want you to see in this passage, God's leading more than just the servant. He's also leading Rebecca. And can I just point out, she has no idea that she's even being led yet. When she gives this stranger a drink, when she waters, every camel, in town, all of this work, she's just being who she is. It's hospitality, it's kindness, it's generosity. She's sort of a female Abraham. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, in her generosity and her hospitality. And but she has no idea the way the Lord is leading her. This is just an ordinary day of her life. It's just her living her life. And I suppose some of us, all of us, we think about how we want God to give us this blessed and spiritual life. And the spiritual life is full of God's leading and signs and wonders and prayers and miracles. But the spiritual life is also just life, And this is just life. And especially from Rebecca's perspective, it's just her life. And she has no idea. And so sometimes the Lord will lead you straight, and it'll be signs, and it'll be obvious. And sometimes he's working in ways you don't even know. But he's still working, always working, and always working for your good. Let's stop right there. We'll pick up right here tomorrow, verses 28 to 67. We're going to meet Laban. We're gonna bring her all the way home, and it's a great story. So tomorrow, chapter 24, verses 28 to 67. Did I even say good morning? I love you guys so much. Thank you for being with me. I'll see you in the morning, Lord willing, 10 o'clock for 10 with